Hello everyone, welcome to the book station. I am Sanjana and thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much for returning, and if you're new, then do consider subscribing at the end of this video. Today, like you can see, my bookshelf looks rather gloomy, and that's because I've pulled out a lot of books that I bought very recently and kept it right in front of me. Very recently, I celebrated my birthday, and my friends were kind enough to gift me so many of these books, and I also gifted some of these books on my own to myself. So I thought, why not show you guys and talk to you about why these books intrigued me, so you can pick them up if they intrigue you as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first book, which is kind of light when compared to the other books in this pile, is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. So this is a young adult fantasy, I think, yes. And this is all about a witch who scares a village, and so the villagers every year leave an infant in front of her door as a sacrifice. But the witch is not really sure of why they do that, and she thinks they abandon them, and she becomes, I can say, the fairy who gives these infants a beautiful home. But one day what happens, she by mistake feeds one of these infants moonlight, I think, instead of starlight, that fills this infant with great magic. And so the witch decides to bring that kid up, the infant up, as her own. And this is all about the journey of the witch and the infant together. And this, I think, is a very heartwarming story, and that is why I bought this book. And this was suggested by one of my favorite YouTubers, Emma, on her channel Emmy, whom I refer to all the time. So if she says this is good, it probably is. And the next book that I bought and I've also finished reading is One Part Woman by Perumal Murugan. So this is the cover of the book. This is Perumal Murugan's first book. The other book that I've read of his is Punachi, which broke my heart, won my heart, and is on my favorite list forever. So I was intrigued by One Part Woman as well, because it pulled him into a lot of controversy and also gained him a lot of threats apart from accolades. One Part Woman is about this couple, Kali and Pona, who for several years do not have a child. This is set in Tamil Nadu, and because they do not have an offspring, they are ridiculed by the villagers and even by family members and extended relatives. So one day they find a solution for this problem of theirs in a temple. Unfortunately, the solution is not an ordinary one, and it will probably cost everything to them. So the story takes you on a journey of what living without an offspring in a small-minded community feels like, and it is how they survive and how they perish. Hint, hint. So I love this book, but honestly, I did not enjoy it as much as Punachi, and I did write a review about it on my Instagram, and you can check that out. It's The Book Station. You will find me recommending a few books and sharing some of my favorite snips from favorite books out there, so you can follow me there. The next book that I was dearly gifted by my dearest friend is Girl Made of Gold by Geetanjali Kolanad. This still is on my TBR on my Goodreads, because this is a fascinating book. This book is about a Devadasi who all of a sudden escapes from the temple, and in her place the villagers and the people of the temple find a statue made of gold. And that reminded me of Punachi. If you've read Punachi, you'll know why. And that was enough for me to put this on my TBR. It's a very small book when compared to the other ones, but I think this is going to be intriguing and mesmerizing as well as heartbreaking, and that is why I put this on my TBR. I'm excited to read this, but I'm not sure I'm going to read it right away, because I have a few other books in mind which I want to read this year. So that will be another video altogether. Then the next book that my dear friends gifted to me is Cobalt Blue by Sachin Kundalkar. I've seen a lot of Indian YouTubers suggest this and Instagrammers as well. This is supposed to be an intriguing and uh, amazingly written story, and I think it is going to be because it is a very short book when compared to how many lines there are in each book, but it has gained a lot of critical acclaim. To put it in one line, Cobalt Blue is about siblings, a brother and a sister, who fall in love with the same man. So that should intrigue you already, and that is what made me put this book on my TBR. I'm hoping to enjoy this, but probably not this year, maybe next year. But still, I love the cover. It has this velvety texture, and I think the book is going to be as good or even better than the cover. Then, now I think the next books are going to be pretty serious. This one is Mornings in Janine. The cover of the book itself makes my heart break with respect to where it is set in. It is set in Palestine, Israel, and it talks about this girl called, I think, Abib. I'm not really sure about her name. So this is about a girl who is born in a concentration camp and how she grows up amidst all that struggle and the problems with the Palestine and Israel division and the war that is going on. And this book is set to do the same for Israel what A Thousand Splendid Suns did for Afghan. And Thousand Splendid Suns is one of my favorite books, which breaks your heart, which changes a part of you. And Mornings in Janine, I think, will also be such a book which will change a vital part of me, but also take me on the greatest literary journey. I have a lot of expectations from this book, which I need to keep under control, but yes, this is going to be a heartbreaker. Now, the next book is Jhumpa Lahiri's The Lowland. I know I'm so late, but The Lowland, I hadn't heard of it. I had only heard a lot about Interpreter of Maladies, but one of my colleagues suggested that I read Lowland because she loved it, and I had to order it because she is one trustworthy person. And I'll read the premise and I'll talk to you about why this intrigued me even more. Born just 15 months apart, Subhash and Udayan are inseparable brothers, one often mistaken for the other in the Calcutta neighborhood where they grow up. This first sentence reminds me of another book about siblings, that is Chitra Banerjee Divakarani's Sister of My Heart. It is also about two sisters who grow up together but then grow up to be very different and then take on journeys that will build a wall between them. And this book also speaks of something of that sort. But they, that is Subhash and Udayan, are also opposites with gravely different futures ahead. It is the 1960s, and Udayan, charismatic and impulsive, finds himself drawn to the Naxalite movement. He will risk all for what he believes. Subhash, the dutiful son, does not share his brother's political passion. He leaves home to pursue a life of scientific research in a quiet coastal corner of America. I think that itself explains a lot. And yes, more happens after they separate and they probably come back together. I don't want to spoil anything for myself or you guys, but Jhumpa Lahiri is one author you can pick up without thinking twice. Her books, the stories that she tells are so amazing, so unique, yet so relatable, and they will stay with you forever. That's what happened with Interpreter of Maladies. So again, high expectations. The next book is E.M. Foster's A Passage to India. So this book has been on my TBR for almost 3 years, but I decided to gift it to myself only this year. I have been intrigued by the partition of India through reading about it through books, and also about how the British functioned in India. Some of the books that I love is A Train to Pakistan, Untouchable. I also remember Mulk Raj Anand's Two Leaves and a Bud, which explore a lot about how the British influenced us, that is Indians, through their reign. And A Passage to India is set during the British Raj, of how Dr. Aziz, Muslim Indian, is brought into a very wrong light when he tries to help two not American, British women who come to India for a visit, and how this brings the British colonial officers as well as the Indian citizens into the story and how they react to it. And this is one of the most famous books of E.M. Forster, which got him the limelight that he still enjoys today. And that is why I picked this book up. And again, I think I'll probably read this next year. The next book I know which is going to be heartbreaking is Shaggy Ben by Douglas Stewart. I ordered this book only after I read the review of one of the bookstagrammers I follow. Her name is Nupur Lakhe. You can follow her on her Instagram handle, Nupur Philip Belief. She is one of those Instagrammers I trust a lot, and she has written an amazing review of this book, and that made me fall in love with this book. It's about Shaggy Ben, a very young boy who does not have a stable life. This is set in Scotland. His father is away due to work. His mother is alcoholic, and all his elder siblings have abandoned him and their mother and made their own way in life. And Shaggy is left with the responsibility of taking care of himself and his mother as well. And at a very young age, he has to sacrifice his childhood and act as a mother figure to his mother. So the role reversal triggers a lot of emotions in me, and I would love to understand what the psychological state of this young boy is. And that is the reason why I picked this book up. It's also the 2020 Booker Prize winner, and again, a lot of expectations and a lot of heartbreak in store for me. The last two books, the last but the second, is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I'm not one who buys books just because they're famous or popular at the moment, but this one book I think I lost my senses to is because this book is about different lives that one can live. I'll read the premise here. Between life and death, there is a library, she said. And within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different if you had the chance to undo your regrets? I don't think I can live this in reality, so I'm going to live this story through this book. There has been a lot of hype, and I have heard mixed reactions about this book, but I definitely know I'm going to connect with at least a few lives in this book. More about it once I finish reading it. So the next book that I have here is House Without Windows by Nadia Hashimi. I'd heard about this book 3 years ago when I was in college, but I wasn't that intrigued, honestly. But I did find my favorite genre once I read A Thousand Splendid Suns and Kaitana by Khalid Hosseini. It talks about how lives are affected by political upheavals and other catastrophes. And A House Without Windows deals with the life of Zeba, a loving wife who one day finds her husband dead in their courtyard. And the murder or the death of her husband is on her hands, and she is sent to prison. And in prison, she meets other women who have found freedom and solace, at least security, in the four walls of the prison. Women who are trying to escape the cultural norms and the other rules imposed on them outside the world. And into this prison comes Zeba's lawyer, who is Afghan born but brought up in America, and he wants to change and make a difference in the lives of the subjugated in his country. And this story is all about Zeba and how she deals with the accusation that she has faced here. And I think this is one of the most popular books of Nadia Hashimi. And again, I do have very high expectations and will probably read it anytime soon. So those were the 10 to 12 books that have been added to my bookshelf very recently. Most of them are very heavy and very well known, so I do have high expectations from them. But I have a very different set of books planned that I'm going to read in the next 3 months, about which I'll be talking in the next video. Until then, do read a book and subscribe if you like this video. See you soon. Ciao.